We are talking Devil's Revenge. This one is directed by prolific B-movie director Jared Cohen and stars William Shatner as well as Jerry Ryan. So you have quite a lot of kind of Star Trek alum here. Although our main character is actually Jason Brooks. So the story is a kind of supernatural Indiana Jones, or at least that's what it wants to be. We have this guy who is an archaeologist, and he has a family curse. His father is played by William Shatner. In his most macho role, I absolutely guarantee you've never seen Shatner deliver such hard-boiled lines. And yeah, so he's just kind of like this essentially an archaeologist who, at the beginning of the movie, is in a kind of cave expedition where he's searching for a particular artifact when one of his kind of like friends is killed. And there seems to be some type of demonic entity that kind of emanates from this particular kind of artifact, and he's kind of drawn back there. Except this time he is actually going with his family, his wife played by Jerry Ryan, and his kind of two sort of young adult children, and eventually his father William Shatner as well. So we have this kind of family going into this kind of cave system a la The Descent, and there are these kind of like quite badass looking demons, I've got to say, who are down there wanting to have nefarious kind of like goings on, shall we say. So let's talk about what works first of all with this movie. Shatner is such fun in this movie. He really is. The way he is written here and the way he is delivered lines, I mean, you've got, you know, it's like this completely, you can imagine him as a kind of like an NRA enthusiast, just some like hard-boiled, far right-wing kind of ass kicker who absolutely takes no shit from anyone and is purely just seemingly having insult after insult. It's quite a funny role because it's so kind of like OTT that it makes it actually worth a watch. Although he is not in this movie as much as the poster suggests. He's really only in 2 extended scenes, I would say. He's in a little bit more towards the end, I suppose, but really it's 2 sequences within the movie, the end and then he's a little bit at the beginning. But when he is on screen, I've got to say, he was quite fun and kind of did kind of bring a sense of enjoyability to what is somewhat of a mixed film, shall we say. But Jerry Ryan, I've got to say, is also pretty good here as to kind of the wife, although she doesn't have a lot to do, I have to be honest with you. I actually did quite like the way this family is cast. Like the daughter actually looks a lot like Jerry Ryan, and even the way she kind of has her hair and stuff like that, she does really look like she would be, you know, like a daughter. And I actually quite like the dynamic between the family and stuff. I thought that was quite fun. I mean, they all there up there when they're going into the caves. The 2 kids and Jerry Ryan's character all thinks it's fun and games, and kind of whilst the husband knows that there's something more sinister going on. But I actually kind of quite like the dynamic between the family there. And then we have our kind of our demonic monsters that are basically kind of just men in suits. And if you are a kind of if you ever play the tabletop game Warhammer, these are like the sort of demons of Khorne, if you know what I mean. They kind of look quite badass, and I've got to say, I kind of enjoyed their makeup, and we do kind of see quite a lot of them on screen, and then we can see some flashback and stuff like that. And although they've made the mistake here of having them in very bright light on occasion, which kind of undermines some of their kind of their monstrousness, but nonetheless, I actually still quite enjoyed the practical kind of like suits here, which I think actually looking pretty good, especially our main one, who looks pretty badass, I've got to say. And they have used a little bit of CGI in the kind of monsters, but it's really on top of the practical effects that kind of like make their mouths move a little bit, and it's kind of, that is done in shadow, and I think it works quite well. But I've got to say, the rest of the movie is a little bit of a kind of a mess. There's so many kind of like just slapdash decisions here. So I mean, I don't want to kind of like pick too many like nitpicks, so to speak, but let me just go through a 1 or 2, just so I can sort of illustrate what I mean. So we're meant to be, this is like a long kind of like undiscovered cave system, all this kind of like this ancient kind of artifacts in there. Yeah, it's incredibly well lit, So it looks like there is like floodlights in there at times. So you're thinking, where the hell is this light source coming from? I mean, these guys are wearing, obviously, torches and stuff, or flashlights, a few of them in the States. But then there's just way too much light. It looks like there must be a hole in the roof or something. So how is it undiscovered? And because of that, it's obviously so we can see what's going on, but it just takes away from any type of suspense because it just looks like a set. So that's just, for example, that's like one nitpick. The acting, I've got to say, is a little questionable from some of our other characters, some of our lesser known sort of characters. There are some, outside of the kind of a small use of CGI and the kind of the actual masks, which I feel is effective, there is a use of CGI effects, which I feel do look very cheap. I mean, I personally can forgive a low budget film for having not quite up to par effects, because it doesn't kind of take, I accept that it's a low budget film. However, I do feel that it will put some people off. But the biggest issue for me here, I feel, is the actual narrative, the actual story is just a mess. It just lurches from one scene to another. It tries to have this kind of like a twisty ending, which I think does not work at all, and completely just kind of like throws logic out the window. We have characters just happening to turn up at like a precise moment when there's a funeral, which is of their fallen friend. We've got bodies that are disappearing. We've got things that aren't explained. The story just seems very, very slapdash. I'm not going to spoil plot points for you, but the story is, and even the pacing of it. I mean, we don't get our cave expedition from the second time until really the last act of the film. And prior to that, it just kind of is treading water for a little bit. So I've got to say, the movie is a little bit of a slog to get through at times. When we have William Shatner on screen, I've got to say I enjoyed that for the kind of the cheesy Shatnerness that you have. And you all know what I'm talking about. But he's not in it that much, to be honest. So we are left with our lesser known actors. And then it's not as fun. It's simply the case. So I only give this one a 4 out of 10. It has some elements that are fun here, but I do feel there's just it looks like it was just a rushed production, to be honest, and it suffers because of that. 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.